Okay, so as you can see now, the onions are getting nice and brown and pretty well wilted away. The green peppers are cooking nicely. At this point, we're just going to add all the tomatoes, like so, and we'll stir it all in. And continue the cooking process. Obviously, there's a fair amount of liquid in the green peppers and also the tomatoes. So you'll start seeing, as the cooking proceeds, it's going to start filling up a little bit more water. If you think it needs a little bit more at any given time, I don't mind adding just a little bit more olive oil, like that. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can't have too much olive oil. So, and as you can see, now it's just, we continue to simmer, and we're going to do that until the tomatoes have become completely soft, and then we'll go to the next step. So there. Okay, so the next step is to prepare the olives, and later on we'll do the capers. So basically, it's a matter of taste, okay? I like a fair amount of olives because the olives gives nice flavor. And all you gotta do is just basically get any kind of olives, and cut them, depending on the size, 2 or 3 like that, okay? Or just, don't leave them whole, but if they're small, just cut them in half, that's good enough. Because they're gonna cook to a certain degree anyway. So, I'm just gonna do just the first bit, so I can show you how to do that. And again, your call how many olives to use. You saw approximately what I've used with what I've got. Now, I'll come back to continue that. In the meantime, I want you to see what's happening with the stuff that's cooking in there. And if you look closely, you'll see now it's almost becoming like a stew. All the water's coming out of the tomatoes and the green peppers. Okay, so you just keep stirring it. Like so. See, I missed, but it comes off anyway, so it's no big deal. You can take it off later. Okay, so we'll come back and show you at what point in time we throw the olives in and the capers.
Okay.
Okay, so I finished chopping up the olives, and now I'm taking about a couple of tablespoons of good quality capers. As you know, Grace, I gave you some one straight from Malta. There's nothing better than that. But if you buy any from the store, make sure like they're from Greece or Spain, because they're generally better. But that's all you basically need. A couple of tablespoons. Don't take out the brine, just strictly the capers themselves. And this is what we're gonna do. So, now come here and take a look at and you can see that the thing is just coming along nicely. And at this point now we can add the capers and the olives. And we're going to give it a good mix in there. Now it took roughly about 45 minutes to bring it to this stage, just to give you an idea how much time you can allow yourself. And now that it's there, I'm going to continue to let it reduce. But at this point, we'll just reduce the heat to fairly low, not totally low, and just let it simmer until the rest of the liquid comes out. And then we'll go to the end of the whole process. But by intents and purposes, you're done with the cooking aspect of it. So we'll see you at the end of this.
Okay.
All right, so now this has been simmering on low heat for approximately half an hour. And if you take a look, now it's reached the right consistency, so it's pretty well cooked now. As you can see, most of the liquid is evaporated, and that's about the right consistency right there. So for all intents and purposes, the cooking process is done. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take it out from there. I'm gonna put it in a serving bowl and let it cool. We're not gonna do anything else now until it gets totally cold, because we don't want to add the tuna until it's totally cold, because you don't want the flake tuna to cook. because it'll give it an awful taste. But as long as you wait till it's nice and cold, you go from there. One last thing before we go to tuna, as you see, I have here, I prefer to use things like Unico or a similar one. But just make sure it's solid light tuna and in oil. Whether it's vegetable oil or olive oil, doesn't really matter. Make sure it's not water. And like everything else, you know, the old saying, you get what you pay for, that's a lie. You never get what you pay for. But the more you pay, the more you get. So you need to get something good, otherwise you're going to ruin all your efforts. So we'll come back when we're ready to add this, and we'll be done. We'll talk to you. Okay, so now it's cooled off, and you can see the consistency is just nice here. Just like that. And I opened a can of tuna. I drained the oil and because there's always a little bit of oil and water, of course, in the tuna, and you don't want to make that any runnier than it is. And so now I'm going to flake it like so, and drop it in like so. Make sure it gets nicely mixed in so that you get a little bit of tuna everywhere. There you have it. It's done. Now, one thing you could do, like as you know, you could have it on toast, on roasted garlic bread, pita. You want to use it as an appetizer. You can use it on a cold plate. But another thing you could do with it, and I did this while I was waiting for that, and cook some pasta, some rigatoni. Make sure it's like kind of well cooked fairly well. Let it cool off completely. Rinse it off. Make sure it gets nice and cold, and then you can add the Kapponata to it, and guess what? Now you have a cold plate that you can do as it's like a salad, and you got it. Okay, so quick wrap up. We're pretty well, as I said, we're done. I showed you how to make another little dish out of it if you want to, but the real secret is this. If you're doing Maltese cooking or generally any kind of Mediterranean cooking, the first thing you got to remember is throw away your teaspoons, your half teaspoons, your quarter cup, and all this. None of that matters. What really matters is your nose and your taste. So everything is to your particular preference in terms of taste. Like for example, some people may prefer to use canned salmon as opposed to canned tuna. I personally prefer the tuna, but you can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, there's no such thing as a wrong way. And if you need to experiment, go right ahead. You know, and as you're cooking, keep tasting, keep smelling, make sure that you're satisfied with what you're doing, and whatever you do is going to be just perfect. That's the secret. Talk to you.